These cursed cemeteries are so frightening, I'm warning you from now to never ever visit them. Greyfriars, Kirkyard in Scotland. If you've ever rolled your eyes at the idea of a violent ghost, just wait until you hear about the place where hundreds of visitors have reported being scratched, bruised, shoved, and even knocked unconscious. And yes, it's all documented. Greyfriars Kirkyard isn't just haunted, it's the only graveyard in the world where officials literally had to lock a tomb shut because the ghost inside was attacking people. Greyfriars sits in the heart of Edinburgh, Scotland. Beautiful, old, dark, and exactly the kind of place where, Shakespeare would have set up an assassination. For centuries, it was just another historic cemetery until the 1990s, when the ghost of one of Scotland's most brutal men apparently woke up. His name was Sir George Mackenzie, known in history as Bloody Mackenzie, for imprisoning, tormenting, and unaliving thousands of Covenanters in the 1600s. His mausoleum sits near the section of the graveyard where he buried the people he oppressed, and in 1999, a homeless man broke into the tomb to sleep for the night. That's when things got weird. The man fell through a rotten floorboard and crashed into a hidden chamber filled with bones. After running out screaming, people who visited the mausoleum started reporting being pushed, scratched, or even feeling sick. Then the injuries escalated. Paranormal investigators documented cuts, burns, bite marks, and full-on collapse episodes by tourists who didn't even believe in ghosts. The city eventually closed off Mackenzie's tomb and installed basically a gate, but the attacks continued. The guide opened it again for Mackenzie's poltergeist tours, and that's when the phenomenon exploded. Now, over the years, there have been over 500 official injury reports, many photographed and, filled or filed by the tour company and local authorities. Even skeptics walked out with scratches they just couldn't explain. Some visitors fainted the moment they stepped near the tomb. Some vomited. One woman claimed she was pushed so hard her ribs bruised, and another described hearing screaming inside the locked mausoleum. Now, and almost everyone who gets touched describes the same thing, like a kind of cold force, like fingers digging into their skin. Even today, locals refuse to walk near the Covenanters, prison at night. Police won't patrol inside. The city rarely allows open access because people keep getting hurt. And the creepiest part, well, Mackenzie's, has been found burning from the inside twice without any heat source. Firefighters described the interior as hotter than a furnace, but nothing around it had been burned. Whatever is in that tomb isn't resting, and visitors keep paying money to prove it. Stull Cemetery in Kansas. If you're driving through rural Kansas and pass a tiny town called Stull, keep going. Do not stop, because according to legend and a surprising amount of real documentation, this quiet cemetery is one of the 7 gates of hell. The stories surrounding Stull Cemetery go back over 100 years, but the strangest part is how many witnesses swear they've seen the same horrifying things: apparitions, disappearing structures, sudden storms, and the figure known only as the Tall Man. The curse supposedly began in the late 1800s when a local farmer found his wife and newborn deceased in a field, unalived by an unnatural wind, according to the town's own historical records. After that, bizarre passings and freak accidents became oddly common in the area. Locals whispered that something was wrong with the land itself. Then came the biggest piece of lore, that Satan appeared at Stull Cemetery twice a year, on the spring equinox and, of course, on Halloween, using the abandoned stone church as a portal. Many call it superstition until you hear the eyewitness accounts. In the 1970s, University of Kansas students tried to debunk the rumors and visited the cemetery on Halloween. Now, they reported that the air suddenly went silent, no wind, no animals, no sound, and then a massive force pushed them backwards, hard enough that one girl had bruises across her chest. They left terrified, of course. Now, around the same time, multiple visitors claimed to see a man in a black coat walking amongst the gravestones, but he wasn't touching the ground. Some saw glowing lights moving between the trees, others swore they heard voices under the earth, moaning, whispering, or even calling their name. And then there's the church. It used to be an old roofless stone building, but locals said no matter how heavy the snow, the interior never accumulated a single flake. University students filmed this in the 1980s. Snow piled outside, perfectly dry, inside, untouched. Some believe the church was a focal point of the haunting. Now, in 2002, the building mysteriously collapsed entirely on its own. No storm, no construction, no warning, just gone. Almost immediately, the property's owner put up fences, hired security, and began threatening trespassers. They refused to speak about the cemetery. Police regularly patrol the area because too many people have tried to investigate and too many leave terrified or injured. Visitors visitors describe hearing footsteps following them, shadows moving between the stones, and a sudden pressure in the air that feels like someone is standing inches behind you. Whether Stull Cemetery is a literal gateway to hell or just the site of an enormous concentration of dark folklore, no one who goes there ever forgets it. Noria Cemetery in Chile. Now imagine visiting a cemetery in an abandoned mining town and seeing people walking between the graves only to realize they're not alive. That's exactly what tourists, explorers, and even local journalists have claimed to witness at Noria, a desolate ghost town in Chile's Atacama Desert. Now, Noria was once a thriving 19th century mining community, but workers were treated brutally. Many perished from exhaustion, accidents, violent conflict, or disease. The deceased were buried quickly and cheaply in a makeshift graveyard on the edge of town. When the mines collapsed economically, the town was abandoned almost overnight. Houses, schools, and stores were left frozen in time, but the place didn't stay quiet. The cemetery sits on a hill of cracked earth, the sun bleaching old wooden coffins until they split open. Yes, open. And in Noria, many coffins lie exposed, bones still inside, untouched for decades. And that's where the reports begin. I mean, for years, travelers have described seeing skeletal figures standing beside the graveyard fence, watching silently. Others claim they heard footsteps behind them, even when the desert was completely empty. In 2003, a group of Chilean journalists visited to document the town's history. That night, several of them reported seeing silhouettes moving between the graves. When they shined lights on them, the figures vanished instantly. One journalist later said he saw a man wearing old miners' clothing, but his face was missing. The creepiest part is that nearly every team that visits Noria independently reported the same thing: figures roaming the cemetery at night, not just shadows, full-on silhouettes. Some explorers captured photos of what looked like people walking in the distance, only there were no other visitors anywhere near the site. Many believe the restless spirits of miners who passed away under horrific conditions remain trapped in the place they were abandoned. Locals from nearby towns refuse to go near Noria after dark. They say the deceased are, unfinished and walk because they never received proper burials. Some believe the spirits warn visitors to leave before something follows them home. And considering how many paranormal investigators claim their equipment shuts off instantly the moment they enter the cemetery, maybe the deceased aren't interested in being filmed at all. Bachelors Grove Cemetery. This is in Illinois. Now, if you ever wanted proof that entire structures can be haunted, look no further than Bachelors Grove, one of the most paranormally active cemeteries in the United States. This place has everything: apparitions, phantom lights, mob activity, mysterious passings, and a literal disappearing house. Bachelors Grove started as a small family cemetery in the 1800s, but by the early 1900s, it became a dumping ground, literally. Chicago mobsters allegedly buried bodies here during the Prohibition era, and locals reported hearing firearms go off and screams in the woods long after. The activity really exploded in the 1960s when police started catching people sneaking into the cemetery at night. Most said they were there because they heard stories of ghost sightings, especially the woman in white, seen sitting on a bench holding a little baby. She's one of the most photographed apparitions in American history. But the wildest phenomenon is the phantom farmhouse. Dozens of witnesses over decades have reported seeing a glowing white house appearing in the woods near the cemetery. The strange part? Well, it's never in the same place twice. People say they see it clearly: windows, porch, swinging lantern, and when they approach, it flickers and vanishes. Photographers once captured a faint outline of the house on film, even though nothing was even there. Then there are the infamous glowing orbs, bright blush lights that float over the pond near the cemetery. In the 1970s, police officers responded to calls about lights moving around the graveyard. When they walked in, the lights darted away like something holding lanterns, except no one else was there. Visitors also report being touched, grabbed, or shoved on the path leading inside. Cars parked outside have been known to stall and not restart until pushed away from the area. One of the strangest incidents happened when multiple people witnessed a ghostly horse and wagon emerging from the pond, complete with a phantom driver. Now, according to historical records, a farmer once actually drowned there when his horse panicked and pulled the wagon into the water. The apparition matches the story precisely. So with decades of police reports, witness accounts, and photographs, Bachelors Grove isn't just haunted, it's a full-blown paranormal ecosystem. The Old Jewish Cemetery of Prague. Now, if you want to see a cemetery that defies logic, you need to hear about the Old Jewish Cemetery in Prague, the oldest surviving Jewish burial site in Europe and one of the strangest looking cemeteries on Earth. Walking into it feels like stepping into another world. The ground is unnaturally high, over 12 feet in some areas, and the headstones lean at impossible angles, jammed together so tightly they look like a stone forest, and there's a reason for that. For centuries, Prague's Jewish community was confined to a tiny section of the city and legally forbidden from expanding the cemetery's land. But their population kept growing, so instead of removing the deceased, they buried new graves on top of old ones, again and again and again. Over 350 years, they created layers of graves up to 12 deep. More than 100,000 people are believed to rest there, stacked in vertical layers. And that's where the legend begins, because locals claim the spirits here are restless, not malicious, but active. Many visitors report hearing whispers between the stones, like prayers or murmured conversations. Some even claim the ground vibrates underfoot, especially in the oldest part of the cemetery where the layers are densest. Now, there are also stories about Rabbi Judah Lo Ben Bezalel, hopefully I'm saying that right, known for creating a mythical golem of Prague. Now, his grave sits in this cemetery, and people leave tiny notes and stones on it asking for wishes, protection, or even miracles. Many claim that if you disrespect the cemetery or fail to honor tradition, strange things happen. Memory lapses, sudden illnesses, equipment failure, or overwhelming feelings of dread. Now, in the 1980s, security guards reported seeing a tall, shadowy figure moving near Rabbi Lau's grave. They said the figure left no footprints, even in fresh snow. One guard quit the same night. Visitors often capture photos with unexplained blue light streaks, even when no reflective surfaces are present. And some claim to have filmed faces appearing behind headstones, even though no one was there. People who wander off the main path sometimes get disoriented, reporting that the cemetery seems to shift around them. So many describe it as energy more than a haunting, like, the voices of thousands of souls watching in silence. So even historians admit the atmosphere here is unlike any other burial site in the world. With its towering gravestone forest, deep layers of the deceased, and centuries of mysticism, the old Jewish cemetery feels less like a graveyard and more like a portal into something ancient. Which cemetery would you visit if you had the chance? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Ashley. I'll see you later. These are America's real gates to hell, and some might surprise you. The 7 gates of hell in Pelham Township in Pennsylvania. Imagine driving down a deserted back road at midnight, passing through ancient metal gates, one after the other, and believing that the 7th gate might open a tear into hell itself. Welcome to the legend of the 7 gates of hell. Now, for decades, the woods of Pelham Township in Pennsylvania have held one of America's most enduring gate to hell myths. That there are 7 gates hidden in the forest along Old Toad Road, and that anyone who can pass through all 7 in order will somehow be drawn into the underworld. Now, one version says a remote insane asylum once actually stood in that area. A fire broke out, many patients perished, and the gates were, erected to trap the missing inmates. Another claims an eccentric doctor built the gates along a forest path to keep out trespassers. Only one gate was visible by day, the rest at night. Now, according to legend, no one has ever passed the 5th gate. And if you somehow get